Dr. Kay. Thank you very much for inviting us to speak today, and also thank you for taking the time to really carefully examine this important issue of how to address driving while impaired, because obviously it is a big issue. Regardless of legalization of marijuana, we do feel like it is a big issue that definitely needs to be addressed. And the important thing we want to focus on today is really providing the data to make a good informed decision on what will be the cutoff level, how will be the best way to detect that someone is impaired when they're either operating a vehicle or, as we heard before, flying an airplane or piloting a boat. So what we're going to cover today in my brief introduction is just a little bit of background, what we do at Altascience Clinical Research, so you understand kind of where we're coming from at this. A little bit of summary of our proposal. I believe you should have the full proposal as well, and then briefly discuss kind of what the data we're proposing to collect, what will it do and what won't it do. I mean, because obviously we have to, there are limitations. It's not going to answer everything. As Dr. Kay said, there is definitely no easy button for this. So a little bit of background on Altasciences. So we are a clinical pharmacology focused contract research organization. So the pharmaceutical companies come to us when they want to get a product on the market. And we do usually the first testing in humans. So first time a drug's ever given to humans, we start with it, and then we kind of follow it through with the drug companies conducting the testing for them. A huge part of what we do is really understanding the blood levels of the drug, how those blood levels affect the benefit of the drug, as well as how they affect the adverse effects. So obviously with cannabis and these other drugs, the adverse effects we're talking about today are how they affect cognition, how they affect the ability to drive. We're actually one of the world leaders in doing driving simulation studies. So we use driving simulators that were invented by Dr. Kay, as well as we use a cognitive testing platform that can capture the same platform that's used with the pilots within North America to test their cognition. We use those in the participants that we test the drugs in. So we get a really good picture of how they're actually driving on the simulator, plus their cognitive tests on the handheld devices. We've also been doing research into cannabinoids and cannabis for over 10 years now. We've run across our company, we have run 30 different studies with cannabinoids or cannabis. Our clinical facility in Montreal actually has run 16 of these studies, and so dosed well over 1,000 different participants with cannabis. We do actually have the facilities to test. We have specially designed smoking rooms so people can smoke it, and then it clears the air very quickly so our staff don't get affected. We also have the bioanalytical methods. There was discussions earlier about the roadside detection and sending off the toxicology labs. We have the methods to not only look at THC, which is obviously very important, but we have methods for about 4 other cannabinoids as well as the terpenes. So we can really look at a good profile of all the different psychoactive ingredients that are within cannabis. Focusing solely on THC, I think, is a bit of a problem because that's not the only ingredient that matters within cannabis. So just a brief summary of our plan. So the clinical program we've designed to measure the impairing effects of cannabis is really set up, as Dr. Kay said, to meet the pharmaceutical industry. This technique has been used for a good number of drugs to show how, a good example are like medication for insomnia. When you take it at 8 p.m., when you wake up in the morning and drive to work, will you still be impaired? This is exactly the tools that we propose to use to look at cannabis. So what are some things we'll be able to look at is, one of the clear ones is obviously the blood levels of THC, of cannabidiol, plus some of the other cannabinoids, their metabolites, because the metabolites of them are also very important, and look at what blood levels cause impairment. We'll also be able to look at the interaction of THC plus the other compounds. What's the interaction with alcohol? There's good research is showing that it is additive, so it does definitely make the impairment worse. There is some research showing it's actually synergistic, that instead of 1 + 1 = 2, it's actually 3 or 4. There's really compounds the impairment. So it's really important to understand that. The other thing, too, which has been brought up today, is the tolerance. So if you're a chronic user of cannabis and you take a certain dose, and then someone else who's never used cannabis before takes the exact same dose, how is the difference in the cognitive effects? There's good research out there showing that There definitely is a difference. How much that clearly affects driving, though, is not really clear. The other things we want to look at is other components that are in. So cannabidiol is one of the other chief components in cannabis. Cannabidiol actually counteracts some of the effects of THC. So we need to look at that to understand, again, like I said before, it's not just the one component that matters, it's all of them together. How they interact to produce that impairment is really important. So the plan has 2 parts, each with 3 different clinical studies. So it's 6 clinical studies overall. If you look at some of the literature that's out there, the number of people exposed in each study has usually been 12 to 18. A lot of what we do when we do for pharmaceutical industry, it's usually 60 to 80 people are exposed per study. So obviously it gives us a much better data set and data to pull from. Also, usually for pharmaceuticals, we actually only have to do 1 or sometimes 2 studies on them.